Chapter 176. Shizun, why don't you buy me? With his ponytail securely tied, Chu Wanning went out to do the dishes. There were only 3 bowls, but he stayed outside for quite a long time. Moran sat on the bed, restless with anxiety. He unwittingly dug his fingers into the crevice between the mattress and the wall, glancing at the window from time to time. What do I do? He wondered. How am I supposed to sleep tonight? This question might have seemed basic, but it was actually impossible to answer. Moran couldn't be sure of Chu Wanning's feelings. As for himself, lust and rationality duelled in his heart, the flames of war roaring sky high. At that moment, the curtain lifted and Chu Wanning stepped across the threshold, wreathed in outside chill and holding 3 freshly washed bowls. When he glanced at Moran sitting on the edge of the bed in the flickering candlelight, there was some subtle emotion in his gaze. But he lowered his lashes a second later such that Moran couldn't get a clear look before Chu Wanning settled at the table with his back to him. Shizun's not going to bed yet? The instant the words left his mouth, he felt he'd blundered. He sounded like a desperate man beseeching his lover to come to bed for the night. Chu Wanning didn't turn his head. I've still got some things to take care of, he said mildly. Go to sleep first if you're tired. I'm not tired either, said Moran. What does Shizun need to do? I'll help. You can't help. I want to make some sound recording high-tongue blossoms. Chu Wanning replied. With a graceful twirl of his fingers, a high-tongue glowing with golden light blossomed in his hand. He placed it carefully near the edge of the table. These blooms were made from Chu Wanning's spiritual energy and could record and transmit a short spoken message, a secret technique of his own invention that none could imitate. Moran was puzzled. He came to the table and pulled out a chair, spinning it around to sit backward. His sturdy arms rested against its back, his chin pillowed on top. What's Shizun planning to do with these? Sell them. Huh? At the note of surprise in Moran's voice, Chu Wanning cast him a dispassionate glance. We can't afford to stay on Flying Flower Isle for 7 days. Isn't Third Lady Sun a businesswoman? Then I'll do business with her. These are golden sound recording high-tongue blossoms that stay fresh all year round. You saw how she's dripping with gold and silver from head to toe. She clearly likes things that glitter. I'll sell them on the street tomorrow and see if she bites. Moran couldn't help but laugh. Shizun is going to sell flowers? Chu Wanning's expression shifted slightly. Perhaps because he didn't want to associate himself with those tawdry ladies selling white orchids in the alleyways, he corrected Moran sternly. They're blossoms made from spiritual energy. They don't count as flowers. I'll go with you to sell them tomorrow. Chu Wanning didn't reply. Bowing his head in concentration, he rapidly conjured a few more flowers before replying sulkily. Do whatever you want, as long as you don't find it too embarrassing. Why would it be embarrassing? Moran plucked a flower off the table and sniffed it. The blossom was light in his hand and fragranceless, its glow singularly graceful. The golden light washed over his handsome face and dark lashes as he smiled. I imagine Third Lady Sun will weep at the chance to buy these from Shizun. How much are you selling them for? Even 100 blossoms don't require much spiritual energy. How about 3 for a copper coin? Moran stared at him without a word. Chu Wanning glanced at him and frowned slightly. Is that too much? He asked, hesitant. Moran sighed. Rather than answer the question directly, he said, Shizun shouldn't name a price tomorrow. Allow me. Why? I made the flowers. I should set the price. 3 for a copper coin. Moran waved 3 fingers in front of Chu Wanning, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Shizun, you're the Baidu mortal, and these are your night glow high-tongue blossoms, prized throughout the entire cultivation run. You're going to let them go 3 for a copper coin? No one's ever asked me for them.
They're pretty enough and good for transmitting messages, but not otherwise useful. I think the price is fair.
Moran laughed in exasperation.
Then why don't you sell them all to me? I'll give you the money right now.
Chu Wanning's hand stilled. Brilliant golden petals floated down as a half-formed haitang blossom was severed from his spiritual power. He held out his hand and responded calmly.
All right, deal.
Finding himself speechless, Moran reached for his money bag before remembering that the island's conniving merchant had already squeezed every last coin from both him and Chu Wanning. He looked up, a bit embarrassed, and met Chu Wanning's answering gaze. There was the barest hint of a smile on Chu Wanning's face. Moran felt doubly awkward.
Shizun already knew I didn't have any money left,
he muttered. Chu Wanning was amused.
You're the one who boasted and said you'd buy if I was selling.
Moran swallowed the rest of his sentence. He suddenly felt that this phrase was rather ambiguous. What Chu Wanning should have said was, "You'd buy if I was selling flowers." But he'd lazily left off the last bit. It made it sound like Moran wanted to spend his money on the man before him. Moran's heartbeat picked up speed. He didn't dare meet Chu Wanning's eyes, afraid his Shizun would detect the disgraceful intent in his own. But when his gaze caught on Chu Wanning's hand, palm up as he waited, he discovered that those fingertips were red and chapped from the cold. When Chu Wanning had been washing the bowls outside, he had stubbornly kept at it until the warm water had turned freezing. Without thought, almost out of habit, Moran grabbed the hand outstretched on the table. Chu Wanning jumped. He'd been feigning calm as he'd held out his hand, but instead of any coin, his fingers found themselves pressed between a pair of warm, broad palms. Those palms were just the right temperature, but he jerked his hand away like he'd been burned by a hot iron.
What are you doing?
Moran had no unseemly intentions. Heart aching, he'd truly wanted to merely warm Chu Wanning's chilled hands. He hadn't expected such a strong reaction and was stunned speechless. The two of them looked at each other in the dim yellow candlelight. A drop of wax sputtered and popped, breaking the silence. Chu Wanning knew his skittishness had been suspicious, so he pressed his lips together and said nothing for a time, uneasy. When Moran saw his expression, the tender sprout in his heart pushed upward more vigorously, striving to straighten its soft form, making his chest itch.
Shizun.
Chu Wanning said nothing.
Do you?
Moran's sentence caught in his throat. Not knowing what lay ahead, he skidded to a halt before the precipice, held back by reason. He couldn't finish the thought. Moran's question was incomplete. Nevertheless, Chu Wanning responded stiffly.
No.
Staring at him, Moran asked,
No what? No matter what you say, the answer is no.
Chu Wanning scowled. Like a cat defending its territory with bared fangs, he was on guard, hackles raised.
Let go.
Moran did. He laid his hand upon the chair back again, the picture of obedience. Chu Wanning returned to conjuring flowers, collecting the petals that had fallen earlier into a complete blossom. He was sulking, though mostly out of helplessness. After a while, Moran spoke up again.
Honestly, Shizun, I only wanted to ask if you felt cold. I just wanted to warm your hands. I'm not cold. Liar.
The hand that Moran touched had been icy. It was obvious that Chu Wanning found the situation excruciatingly awkward.
If there's nothing else, you should get some sleep,
he said.
I'll take you to sell flowers tomorrow.
Moran didn't know how he should answer. Often, Chu Wanning used to say, I'll take you to cultivate, or I'll take you to meditate, or I'll take you to study. What was all this about, I'll take you to sell flowers? He tried, but mostly failed, to suppress a laughter that bubbled up in his eyes, his pupils reflecting the man in the candlelight. He let out a soft hum of agreement, but he really couldn't bear to leave the table.
Go to sleep.
Moran glanced at the bed. He'd resolved that he wouldn't go to sleep before Chu Wanning, no matter what. He didn't know whether he was supposed to sleep on the bed or the floor, so he would wait and see what Chu Wanning did. If Chu Wanning went to sleep on the innermost side of the mattress, clearly leaving space for him, then he'd sleep on the bed. If Chu Wanning lay right in the middle, then he'd behave. His face reddened as he sneakily schemed.
I won't sleep yet. What are you doing sitting here then?
Chu Wanning frowned. Moran raised a hand and brought his long, slender fingers together. With a flourish, a fiery red butterfly made from spiritual energy appeared in mid-air. Chu Wanning stared blankly.
For sale.
Moran grinned. With a light flick of his fingers, the red butterfly fluttered into the air and landed among the pile of Chu Wanning's haitang blossoms on the table. As it dove in and out of the flowers, it flapped its glowing wings as if pollinating them.
Mine will be quite pricey. I'm a black-hearted scoundrel, so they'll be 10 gold apiece.
Chu Wanning watched that pesky butterfly flying back and forth. It paused on one of his haitang blossoms to lap at its tender stamen. His face was like a thundercloud.
Over you! What is it?
Chu Wanning was so furious, he didn't know what to say or how to say it. He managed, finally, to quash the urge to explode. Flustered, he choked out.
3 copper coins each, at the very most.
Moran laughed out loud. When he chuckled a moment, he spun out another fiery red butterfly. He held out his hand, and the butterfly gently alighted upon the haitang blossom, forming in Chu Wanning's fingertips.
If I ain't selling them to others, it'll be 10 gold. I think the price is fair. Then you can sell them to me.
Chu Wanning took a deep breath and said fiercely,
I'll go resell them myself. They can't be priced higher than my haitang blossoms.
After some thought, he added,
But I don't have any money on me now. I'll pay you once we get back to Xisheng Peak.
Smiling, Moran spun out the third butterfly and sighed softly as the butterfly danced around Chu Wanning on its swift wings. With his head propped against those sturdy arms, the color of golden wheat, he said gently,
Not a chance. Are you saying you won't let me buy on credit?
Chu Wanning raised his chin, his eyes shining with anger and his face haughty. If Moran really dared to say he wouldn't take his credit, then, as his teacher, Chu Wanning resolved to properly discipline this impudent, delusional man. That delusional man smiled even more brightly, his dimples deep and his tone warm.
No, I wanted to say...
Wanted to say what? Chu Wanning's claws were bared, ready to strike out.
I'll let you buy me out.
Moran left off the specifics, making this statement rather vague and suggestive. Resting his cheek against his arms, he gazed at Chu Wanning, perfectly earnest.
It's all yours, free of charge.
Never in a million years could Chu Wanning have anticipated such a response. Dazed, his face immediately flamed red. The hour was late. The little cottage was piled high with spiritual butterflies and haitang blossoms. They already had more than enough to sell, yet neither was willing to be the first to retire for the night. Moran's worries were self-evident. He figured he would see where Chu Wanning slept and act accordingly. Although Chu Wanning wasn't aware of his plan, he wasn't stupid either. He felt a vague uneasiness. He too wanted to know what Moran would choose. Would he sleep on the floor or on the bed? This man was giving Chu Wanning an ever-increasing sense of danger. But if Moran really lay down on the bed, Chu Wanning didn't plan to chase him off. He was painfully aware of that hidden thread of hope in his heart. The hope that he would see Moran wearily get to his feet, say, I'm sleepy, and lie down on the bed.
Why is he still awake?
Chu Wanning and Moran each spun out more flowers and butterflies, both impatiently thinking the same thought.
Go to sleep already. If you lie down on the bed first, then I'll... Shizun. Are you tired? It's so late. You should rest. No need. I'm used to it.
Thus, another 2 hours passed.
Moran. Why are you still sitting here?
I'm making more butterflies. If Shizun's tired, you should go to sleep first. I'll be up a little longer. Chu Wanning expended every effort to suppress his yawns, grinding his molars together. He hadn't slept for 2 nights in a row, and the rims of his eyes were red with fatigue. Yet still he insisted.
I'm not tired yet.
Moran watched him steadily. Little by little, the room became an ocean of butterflies and high-tongue blossoms, overflowing with dazzling red and gold. Who knew how much time had passed when Moran blearily raised his head again, only to jolt wide awake. An exhausted Chu Wanning had slumped against the table and fallen asleep where he sat. A half-formed high-tongue blossom lingered on his fingertips, its petals fluttering delicately with each of his breaths. Moran stepped around and carefully lifted that fragmented flower. He placed it on the table and gathered Chu Wanning into his arms.